Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to meet together today to discuss the affairs of our community. We ask that Thy Spirit will be here with us, that we'll be able to give good consideration and thought to the items placed before us, that we'll be able to make decisions that are for the best long-term view for our community here. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, we are going to call this meeting to order, an early order, a couple minutes ahead of time. It's okay. And it is
I'm going to hold you to that.
all right, guys. Order in the room. It's the 11th day of July, and we have our regular meeting, town meeting, and we will recognize our Channel 32, Corey McCarthy, and our visitor, quarterly visitor, Councillor Fudge, who is going to give us our quarterly report today. So we need to look at the agenda and see if there is any additions. Councillor Bengry?
Mayor, I have 3 items I'd like to speak to.
Okay.
I don't know where you want to put them.
Well, call them up.
7th Avenue West.
Is it something that you want to discuss with us or with administration?
We'll address the problem when administration can go from there.
Okay, all right. So let's put it under questions, yeah.
Okay, so 7th Avenue. And Courthouse Museum.
Okay, so is that part of the committee reports?
No.
Okay.
And also vagrancy on Main Street.
So all questions?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. The vagrancy, we have a letter
You got a
on
letter
the
from
11th.
Attorney
Do you want to talk about the
Maybe,
issue at that
yeah,
point?
maybe we could include that with that.
Okay, all right, so I'll put you as
In addition,
an addition now.
11B1.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right, Councillor,
When we do committee reports, I'll just announcing the judging for the committees in June.
okay,
So that it's a week. It's a week from today.
okay, yeah, you need to give me a few more details. All right, thank you. So we have those additions, 3 additions. Any others? Seeing none?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Peavoy. All in favor? Thank you.
Mayor,
All right,
Mayor, if I can make one comment before we get started, I'd like to compliment Councillor Peavoy and his wife on a job well done on Canada Day celebration.
I was going to do that on the committee, you
Oh,
beat me to
okay.
it. Thank you very
Fantastic
much.
job.
All right, so Councillor Holt, if you'd like to give us the RCMP quarterly report, thank you.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Quarterly reports, just a few increases in statistics between last quarter and this quarter. And even like when I compared it from last year to this year, there's still an increase there. So specifically your property offenses and other criminal code, noticeable increases there. Under property offenses, dealt with a lot of mischiefs, thefts, like minor thefts, things like that, and also possession of stolen property. So nothing really significant, but the small files add up quite quickly. Part of it is just a lot of business owners calling in, or shoplifters, things like that. This spring we went through and reinforced the idea to the business owners that we're willing to prosecute anything. So that's where I think we got a lot more calls for things like a $4 item or a $2 item. So that of course increases our stats that way alone. On other criminal code, biggest contributor to that increase is a lot of fail to appear in court. We had this non-stop every Monday, a lot of people weren't showing up in court, and so of course that increases our file load we had.
Does that result in a new warrant, or?
Yeah, it results in a new charge, a new investigation file that we start, and of course we also.
Maybe just follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
Do we, like statistically, do we get a lot of those eventually, or do we just kind of never?
No, we've cleared up a lot of those already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, good to hear.
Traffic statutes have been really busy this both quarters.
Sort of provincial statutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a good amount of 911 hang-up calls we've been dealing with. So that falls underneath your provincial statutes, minus your traffic, right? So we've been dealing with a lot of that. In one case that I was involved in, we had 3 911 hang-ups, one person. So every one of those generates its own file.
Do you have to go there and follow up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, every 911 call is a mandatory follow-up. So.
Was it kids?
No, it wasn't a kid in that case. Sometimes it is kids, a lot of the time it's kids. In that one case with 3 calls, it was an adult. And, yeah.
Is there charges pending on something like that?
No, he was warned in that case. Yeah, but yeah, it could be a charge underneath the 911 Act. So, yeah.
It's pretty serious, dispatch,
Okay.
emergencies.
Now, I see that you have had 5 cases more than last quarter on drugs, so I mean, that is good. That means some people got apprehended or something was done. So is that a result of whom, or?
It's just, there wasn't really a specific target. It's just a matter of dealing with enough people and arresting them. We ended up finding enough drugs. There's
So could
nothing
be stuff in cars or whatever?
No, nothing really significant for amounts of seizures. Just small seizures that we are coming off of individuals.
Okay, thank you. Now, what is your feeling regarding the property offenses because of the increase? Is that just a seasonal adjustment because we have more people in town that are transient in our town? Is that what the issue is, in your opinion?
Well, that's where we'll see the increase in mischief, because sometimes just the call is considered mischief when we're dealing with people who are unwanted on property or doing something downtown. We don't score it as a vagrancy, we score it as quite often be a mischief if it's not a disturbing of the peace criminal code. So.
All right, so if it is property offenses, I would imagine that a certain proportion of those numbers are with individual homeowner or homes. So the advice that we always give them, as much as we can, is keep your property locked up properly and your garage closed, and do not have your bikes and whatever else hang around unattended. Is there something else? We close your car, don't leave it running.
It's a lot of just repeating the same messaging so people don't forget about it. A lot of your mischief is also going to be associated with people going and checking cars to try to get in to steal whatever items they can find inside. So that would be more of a seasonal issue we see. Once the warmer weather comes at night, people can be out more on foot. But again, the messaging doesn't really change. It's the same thing, it's just reminding people, because we still see people having their vehicles entered and things stolen, and wallets, computers, cell phones are stolen out of the vehicles regularly, and people chose to leave those things in there.
All right, so it's up to individual to become a little bit more careful with their properties.
We'll continue the messaging, and I think there's lots of community groups that continue that messaging. COP is really helping out on that, and it's just continue to be persistent.
Right. I mean, numbers that are up also is an indication that there is a lot more police involvement in all those cases. So, I mean, you've been busy,
We have been busy this
to
quarter.
say the least. So thank you to your forces for all what you render for service to our town. I mean, I know we would love to see the numbers go down, but the truth of the matter is, it's a reality we're facing, which is difficult to deal with.
If you look at the criminal code traffic, there was an increase from last quarter to this quarter, and even from last year to this year, there was a significant increase. And of those 15 criminal code traffic, we charged 6 impaired drivers just in this quarter alone. So if we go back and look at 2013 for the entire year, they only charged 2. And it's not that there's an increase in impaired drivers on the road, it's just that the members are out there focusing in that area, and that drove that specific stat up alone, because they're out there looking for impaired drivers.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Bengry?
Corporal Hodge, I do a lot of riding around in all different hours of night. You probably see me in 2 or 3 different vehicles. I want to compliment the RCMP on the amount of the visuality that you are out in our community. I've seen you all over the community now, in the truck, in the SUV, and I think that's very, very good, because the public sees you, even the rocking chair critics sitting in their living room, you drive past their house and you see it. So thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments?
One less SUV driving around right now.
We're back on the road by
You just had to bring that up.
Well, thank you very much, and thank your detachment on our behalf. Thank you. I know it's a thankless job.
There are lots of thank yous today, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
thank you.
Good evening.
Okay, bye. All right. We need to adopt the minutes for the meeting of June 27th. Councillor Bengry?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes of June 27th, 2017.
Thank you. Any questions regarding those minutes? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Let's look at the item 6, draft bylaw 1660. Here, if you remember, we were looking at the candidate and nomination deposit. We had a fairly good discussion last time, and I remember Councillor Barfuss mentioning that maybe a deposit is just a way to signify that you are serious about trying to be nominated. So it's not going to break the bank. You can get the deposit back if you get 10% of the voters' return. In general, I would say pretty well everyone gets a return back. So what we need is a motion to decide on the amount. We had decided.
We have it within there now.
Okay, it
And
sounded
so,
all right, yeah.
so I'll move first reading of the bylaw 1660 as it is currently constituted in our package here.
Okay, so all in favor? Thank you. All right, so first reading is done.
We can do second, maybe, we've got time, according to Jeff, and if we can give it more exposure, so if we give third reading in August, I think that'll give it more exposure before the election.
Yeah, we absolutely can, Councillor, if you want to do that. Go ahead.
I think we just give more exposure, but I'm happy with second reading.
Okay, all right, you want to?
Councillor Bengry.
I'll move to second reading of bylaw 1660.
Okay,
Candidate nomination.
all right, all in favor?
I will just,
Oh, sorry, you
yeah,
have
just,
a
so one
question?
thought on second reading. Not a big deal. I just wanted to point out though, just so we're all aware, and maybe clarify if I'm reading the MGA correctly, for a municipality of our size, we are increasing the deposit to the maximum allowable, never to be increased
Yeah.
unless they adjust the MGA.
That's
So-
right.
It's actually the election, but yes.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
the election.
And for a large town, it's $1,000. Yeah.
Right,
That's over
yeah.
10,000.
And again, I don't think it's unreasonable for the seriousness, but, I just wanted to point out that we are
Yeah.
going to the max.
That's right. But you have to remember, it's refundable, right?
Right.
Okay, so all in favor? Thank you. All right, let's look at draft bylaw 1661, fire services billing. If you remember, we really did not have that in place when we had a serious fire in town, and unfortunately, we could not recoup the cost of the services from the owner because we didn't have a bylaw in place. So that is to fill the gap.
Correct.
So any questions or a motion, one or the other?
Yeah, he doesn't have any schedule.
We were going to talk about that
Yeah.
maybe after we.
So, so what kind of motion, are we looking at the first reading on this?
Yeah, first reading.
Because
And you can always bring some amendment afterwards before we pass second reading and third reading.
Yeah.
So that is no, first reading is really an
Yeah,
intent.
bringing it on the table.
It's an intent to bring it. Jeff, maybe you want to talk to it?
Councillor Creed's correct, I don't have the schedule in it, I wanted some direction on that. I have in the backgrounder that to match the counties, it would be at 615 per hour. That would be relatively consistent with Pincher Creek as well, I think they're 600 per unit per hour, if I remember correctly. So I wasn't sure where you wanted to go with that, that's not the cost that we would be billed from the fire authority. There'd be a significant margin in there. But, so I just wanted some discussion on that schedule before I drafted it.
So, yeah, my question, that 615, does that reflect a bit of a margin?
Yes.
So, like what percentage?
Well, if I understand the county's arrangement correctly, the fire authority bills them $250 an hour. And then they
Per
turn
unit.
around and bill $615.
That's a pretty good margin.
And then they turn around and put that towards capital
And they
expenditure.
take the difference to fund requisition.
Yeah.
They don't get too many fires, there's not very much in the margin even.
Say that again?
What I'm saying is, we don't have many fires, the margins.
Well,
Yeah.
It's one of the fundamental issues that I see with the authority in general, is that doing it this way really drastically slants things towards the county, because that's where most of the fires that we go to are called at. And then they are now making that margin there instead of the authority making that margin. So effectively then, our requisition is going up proportionally on that.
I mean, the whole of the requisition is flawed on this model.
Very.
It's totally flawed, but we cannot fix it, in my opinion, my humble opinion, until we have the intermunicipal agreement, because that has to be part of it. So right now, I think what it behooves us to do is maybe to match the county and then deal with it at the proper place and time, which is probably not going to happen until after the next election.
I would agree.
Okay, the purpose of this bylaw is for what reason? Because
Okay.
now we dealt with a fire before, and this person never had fire insurance. What's the story?
Yeah. it's-
So there's
okay,
nothing
brief summary.
Jeff can maybe enlighten us as to the background.
So what happened is we had a fire in the community, they did not have firefighting insurance to pay the costs of fighting the fire.
This community.
It was
Yeah, in this
Bengry.
community, yeah. We had a
just-
house burned down up on First
oh,
West here.
yeah, All west.
There was no insurance to fight the fire, so Danny has been trying to collect from the, what I'll call the previous homeowner, the home's gone, but the property owner, unsuccessfully. So we inquired with RMRF about, Danny came to me and said, could you put it against their taxes and then pay the authority back? And RMRF said, not if you don't have a bylaw beforehand, you can't do it retroactively.
So
right?
that's the purpose, to fill a gap.
So as I was trying to put this together, come to find out, the county's had this bylaw since 2009. that they've had the ability to do this. I'm not gonna say they've been doing it,
Because they have done.
because we've paid 50% of bad debt for the last number of years. But they've had the ability to do it, but haven't, and so my discussion with Murray was, we need to be somewhat consistent on how this is collected, or somebody burdens the other municipality with debt. And so if we're gonna enact this bylaw, they need to act on theirs, they need to follow through with it, so that they don't burden the authority with bad debt that the town gets to pay. So this stemmed from the fire on First West. So that is sitting as bad debt at the authority right now.
Now, Jeff, to take this one step farther, what happens if we co-respond to a fire on the reserve?
So different animal altogether.
Yeah.
So we
Different.
never have the ability to municipally go after that money, ever.
Is that right?
No, that's not an
Already
option
in
for
arrears,
us.
$24,000.
And
I thought they were-
From
I thought
the
they were
fire
doing-
out at the
Yeah.
Metro.
I thought they were doing that on a monthly basis.
Okay, so the way the authority is dealing with the reserve pays a monthly $2,000 flat rate for services on the reserve.
Right.
But beyond and above that, when there is really large structure burning, like over 3 days, and you had 3 different fire departments that attended that fire, it is up to the authority to bill the chief and council, the reserve, for the difference, for that very issue, and then divide it up among all those who participate. The problem with what happened over there is that the insurance for that building was less than what the cost of looking after that fire was. So in consequence, there is money outstanding because there is no collection process.
So if we have a major fire in the county, a rangeland fire or something
Yeah.
like that, and we respond with our equipment, and we're out there for 2 or 3 days,
No.
such as the Bullhaven fire, then we get a portion of that.
And when you
insurance.
say our, are you meaning the towns or the
Yes.
authorities?
No, the town responds with their
So
equipment.
we bill the authority the cost of the equipment we send out.
And the men, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would bill them, they try and collect it via insurance or from the homeowner or whatever, and then they just have a bill from us. So it's not unusual, but it's not common that we have our specific equipment at a fire. So we did have a water truck at Red Crow College. So we had a water truck out to that. That's actually one of the other reasons that spurred that whole notion of a non-arm's length party billing.
Right.
Because Danny was saying, you build me these road builders rates, but we're kind of a team here. We're an authority under the town. You know, is that a reasonable rate? And so that got some of that conversation a year ago going as well. My
So-
concern with this bylaw is actually almost outside of the bylaw itself. My concern is philosophically, the authority has the ability to collect that higher rate. It's not always successful. Obviously, we wouldn't have paid 80-something thousand in bad debt over the last number of years. But they have the ability, when they collect it, the authority is the recipient of the whole amount, and it reduces our requisitions. Under this scenario, they're going to get guaranteed covered their costs. So, for example, how the counties works is Danny bills the county for the cost, and the county immediately pays it. So the authority is no longer looking for anyone for money. That's off the table. And the county now is looking to get that money from the homeowner. The big difference between the county and the town in this is by default, all of us have firefighting insurance in our insurance policies. It just comes by default. But once you're so many kilometers away, that's not the case anymore. So I feel for the county that they get a homeowner that has a grass fire, the bill's $12,000 and they don't have insurance for it. Now that's onerous.
They gotta pay it.
That's a big deal for that private landowner, I get that. The cases are rare in the town, but again, we have bad debt sitting at the authority because we didn't have a mechanism to collect it. On that same property, we had the house demolished, we put that against taxes, but we had a mechanism to do that.
Yeah.
And so this one was one of those that was left hanging.
So in
Councillor,
Well, I was just going to say, so in your opinion, for this to be equitable, each municipality, individual municipality would be responsible for their own bad debt?
well,
Instead of splitting
So-
that?
it would be a nice
Through the authority.
idea.
So that's kind of why this ended up where it's at.
'Cause
Yeah, so now each authority, each municipality is responsible for any bad debt incurred, but now each municipality is collecting all of the margin that's there. And it, to be honest with you, I believe it swings things drastically the other direction, where we're getting the short end of that stick, because we have how many fires in town? Like, there just aren't that many.
Compared to
The vast majority of the fires that the authority responds to are in the county, not in the town. And now all of that margin that is gained there is gonna go to the county instead of to the authority.
Yeah.
And that's gonna increase our requisition.
Yeah, so,
So effectively, we're still paying for all the bad debt, because now our requisition's gonna be higher.
then you got
Yeah.
highway,
so, but the,
vehicle
yeah.
accidents and stuff that they have to respond to as well. They're not in town.
so this is why I say it's a complex issue. Right now, let's close a loophole at the municipal level. And as for the fairness and equitable processing of the whole implementation, we need to wait to have more discussion at a higher level.
One thing, Councillor Peavoy, neither this bylaw nor the county's, they're both silent on this matter. The county's bylaw does not say this is what they're billed and this is, they keep the margin, it's silent on that. And so is this to a large degree. Something that would be relatively more equitable is that you collect it on behalf of the authority and 100% of it's turned over to the authority.
Exactly.
You know, that way, nobody's covering the other's margin, really. And that's something we can probably have that discussion down the road. But that would be probably more equitable. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, there isn't one, but it would be more equitable if they collected all $615 and turned it over to the authority, because then we benefit from a reduction in cost because the authority got the whole $615, not $250.
Councillor
I'm
Barnes?
prepared to move first reading by law 1661 fire services billing bylaw.
Okay, Councillor Barnes moved.
I would just do first reading and I'll
Yes.
bring the schedule back on the
Yes,
next one.
absolutely.
If there's any other feedback on that.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for your input. All in favor? Thank you. All right, policy P50, policy development. So here you can see a little bit the argument that is made for that policy. Do you have any questions, concerns? Councillor Creed, I see you are intrigued.
Oh, this is it, no, I was trying to recall everything in it, yes, basically policy for policies.
That's correct. That is exactly what it
And if you
is.
remember, we had discussed the fact that some policies are really administration, and it really should be the realm of administration. Some policies should really be looked at by council. So essentially, that's what I think. So what are the realms, that's where the definition is in that policy.
Just a little context, Shem and I had the opportunity to share a table with a couple of municipal advisors about 2 weeks ago at an elections training. So over the lunch, we were kind of quizzing them, saying, give us some example of how you see this dealt with across the province. What's working? What should we be doing? Here's what our intention is. We used the pool one as an example that was just really a procedure. It was an administrative procedure. And how do we see this? And they said, well, what's your policy on policies? I said, well, we don't have a policy on policies. And they said, well, that's how you would outline and delineate between yourself and council what's going to be where. And so when we got looking, we quickly found a number of the cities, actually the major cities have excellent on their websites. They have excellent delineation between and how you can access this and who deals with this, and it's quite robust. And then we found BAMPs that had a very just a concise policy, which this is largely mimicked after. And so we thought, okay, this isn't unusual. This is something that's happening out there and being done as best practice. And so we thought, well, instead of bringing some samples back like we talked about, maybe we start with a policy on how we delineate it. And then I think I wanted to meet with the policy review committee anyway. We meet and say, these ones go in this bucket, these ones go in this bucket, here's a bunch of gray area, and we'll work that out through committee meetings. We'll figure that out. And then we can kind of get them sorted out. We found, when Shem and I were looking, we found a number that almost can fall into both camps, and that's probably appropriate. You know, they're a little bit of both. And so they can be on both sides of that table. But this is, after we did a little research, followed up from the meeting, the committee meeting that Councillor Peavoy was chairing. It was determined that having a policy first was your best bet.
Yeah, and I think that's right.
So, right now, as it stands, all policies are council policies.
Yes.
And so really what this is doing is this is saying a number of policies and this is what I'm clarifying here. The moment we pass this, is it understood that a number of policies would instantly become administrative policies without really coming to us individually to check them off, just trusting in your judgment on that? Or is the intention that one by one, you'd probably meet with us and say, here's my list of easy administrative, here's the iffies that, you know, is that the plan?
So great question, and I was thinking about that. I was out of town for a bit today, driving back, thinking I think what would be most appropriate is a recommendation from the policy review committee that says this batch should be administrative policies, resolution of council. This batch, council policies, resolution of council. And so it's very clear when we delineate this, that we do it by a resolution of council. So the policy's in place, yes, but I don't think it's just they're going to magically fall into their buckets and you guys are going to be fine with whatever I choose. I think we'll have some of that discussion at a subcommittee level and then get a resolution of council to start off like that. That's how I see it.
Councillor Creed, Councillor Bengry, Councillor Barfuss.
Yeah, so that would be good, for start off with existing policies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the question would be after that, new policies that as they are developed, and maybe, well, I guess maybe this bylaw kind of should help delineate which types of policies, so that in future you don't have to come to council and say this is an administrative policy. You just know that this is an administrative policy.
Right. There's always going to be some that I think we're going to have some discussion on. Now, I think, for example, about right now, if we were to take the communication policy as an example, we can't set that in one or the other right now because it's got sections for councillors and sections for staff and sections for, it just isn't cut and dry. So that's when we'll have to have some discussion. Do we part it out or do we have a both column? We just have one. We'll have to have a little work on it. There's going to have to be a little work.
Just from,
Councillor Bengry's first.
just. Councillor Bengry.
You can step in front of you.
No, I just wanted to know, it's just a technical thing. Are we going then to have a different system to number those policy, administration being A,
Right.
council being the P, and PA when is both?
Yeah, we'd have to
Something
look
like
at that.
I mean, just a
Because
thought,
the other-
because it would make it easier
Yeah.
when you search for
Sure.
stuff rather than search for the whole thing.
The other thing Shem and I were talking about is I'd still like to see a way that if I amend an administrative policy, that by rule or at least by guideline, that's in my CAO report, for example.
Right.
So you get the
Yeah.
CAO report and I would say, this month I amended for this reason and just for council's information, this and this policy were amended because we ran into this situation. The amendments are attached. They're not for a motion, but you need to be aware of the policies.
I
You need
think-
to have a knowledge of them.
I think that could be very similar to what Public Works does with their projects.
Oh,
You know.
yeah, I just put it in my CAO. The act
It could be
obligates me to give you a
something like
CAO
that.
report.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can put it in there.
Now, Mayor, I'll
He's gonna bump me again.
yeah, you darn right, Beasley, but I have a wording problem with some wording in here.
Sure.
And the problem I have is the wording of the town manager. I think that needs to be changed to a
Can we
CAO.
define it?
Because-
Let me look here.
Yeah.
Right at the very
That's
first.
the CAO.
Definition.
Yeah,
It
and
is in
I
the
would like to see that to the CAO,
It's in-
because the town manager in the other towns is a public works manager, it's not, and you use it yourself as a CAO. And I'd like to see that changed to the CAO.
That one for the next go around.
It's
Yeah, we made sure to
defined.
define it as a CAO.
It's defined as CAO in there.
Yeah, if it's, okay, Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, the one thing that I think under the communications area, sometimes there are events that happen in town, whether it be, a major event or whether it's, somebody notable gets into trouble. People are always wanting to ask the questions, right? And so they first come to you, or they'll come to the mayor, or they'll come to one of the councillors. And I really like the last thing, we got a note explaining that
They sent you out of position.
set us out of position, and we follow that. And I can't help but like to revert back, when we first got elected in, we talked about the mayor is the spokesperson, and that's the official word, and the CAO and the mayor work together on, I think, that policy of communication, because some things, by all means, you could answer those, or Shem could answer those, but there are some things that they're going to come right to the mayor.
But hopefully the mayor represents the view of council, because that would be the proper line.
Well, that's right, and some of these things will be communicated before somebody comes to you and asks you about it anyways,
When
but,
the mayor starts to put their own idea or his own idea
Yeah.
forward without a sense of council.
Exactly what I was saying.
well, I think,
You know what happened, there's trouble in the air.
yeah, well,
There
I
are
think
some
that's,
towns that can tell you that.
I think that's where that communication has to take place between the CAO and the mayor
Yeah.
before that happens. Because I don't feel comfortable with giving my opinion, because then it becomes 7 different opinions on that particular topic. And so,
Yeah.
I just remember when we had the plebiscites, I don't know how many of you, I'm sure most of you got called by different news agencies, and I referenced them back to the mayor that she's our spokesperson, and then get accused of having
Being muzzled.
being muzzled, and I said, no, this is a part of our town policy. And at that, what can she say, or what can he say at that point in time? That's town policy.
Yeah.
And to me, it's wise. I mean, we all are entitled to our opinion, but we have to be careful that we don't have 7 different opinions.
All right. So, but it doesn't take away your ability to state your own personal
Oh,
opinion.
absolutely.
That is still a right you have.
Well, and just on that note, one thing I think we need to retain is the ability for our constituents to come to us individually
Absolutely.
and find out where
Yeah.
we sit.
Yeah.
So are we currently discussing a policy or the policy about policies?
Yeah.
He was talking about the
Right now
difference between
we
A,
lost a
C,
little
and
bit.
the B.
Right now we a little
That's-
diversion.
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, so anyways, do we have first reading for this?
Well, we just need an
It's
approval.
a resolution.
It's a resolution, so it's not a bylaw.
And I think this is, is a really good thing, so I will move that we adopt policy P50.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Move on. 7, other business. Scale request for decision. As you can see, our historical trees have a little bit of an issue. And the issue is actually fairly costly to remedy. So here is the problem. Do we look after the courthouse tree first and see how the remedy improves the situation? Or, which is the elm scale, it's a disease that kind of creates the branches to turn black. And or we do all of them, hoping that the remedy will take care of all those trees. We will not know until we apply the remedy. And because each tree reacts differently to the treatment, it is difficult to say we try that and see how it goes and hope for the rest to follow the same way, because they might not. It's a very individual thing. According to the report, it has to do with the health of the root system. and I'm not under the use to tell.
I know the individual in Lethbridge who is directing this thing with Lethbridge. And my concern is how effective is this?
Well,
And before we go start spending piles of money, which we could end up doing,
$6,000.
or more,
But it's.
I'd like to suggest that we get a report out of Lethbridge who is treating their elms.
We have that report.
We have that report.
It's right inside there. And this is where they say that it's a half dozen of this and a half dozen of the other. For some trees, it's very effective. For some others, it's not so effective. And this is where they talk in the report that the difference is, from what they understand, is the health of the root system.
I'm going to go to Lethbridge and talk to Kevin.
Yeah, well, it's there, the whole report is there.
So my concern on spending money on these trees actually deals more with the E.J. Wood property. Because I'm concerned about us spending a bunch of money to save those trees that are at some point just gonna be cut down. Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I mean, we don't know right now. but-
Yeah, what's going on?
What's
that easy to property?
So it's, I think we almost have an obligation due to our historical tree designation to try to do something with our museum trees here.
Which would be about $1,600.
It should be about $1,600, but I'd be really reluctant to spend the money on the E.J. Wood trees at this point.
Okay, you have a good point, Councillor.
Same way.
So, not being an expert on the insect travel patterns, but my question is, do we have any clue as to
They're gonna
if
pack their
there's...
bags up and they're moving
Well,
across
right,
the
yeah,
street.
if we treat some trees here, but they're surrounded by elms around, even on private properties and such, I don't know if there are any wandering elms around. But, you know, are the insects just gonna reinfest, you know, like, would it do any good to just treat a couple trees? Or should we treat them in a bigger clump to have better effective? That's my
Well,
question.
yeah, Councillor Creed, you may enlighten us.
Well, I'm
on this
not
one.
sure that I have the answer on this. I would like to find out more information. I like the CAO recommendation. I think that's wise, and Councillor Barfuss's recommendation. My question, and what I'd like to find out is that, I mean, this elm scale was reported, but how long has it been around, and how devastating is it to the trees? Could the trees live with elm scale for 100 years and not be terribly affected by it? You know,
One thing, and it's interesting since I started learning about this last week, frankly, you look at these trees and look at the black in the top, it looks like they were burned. That's the result of the elm scale. So
Yeah,
it
it
starts to
destroys-
damage that outer layer.
Yeah.
And it starts, that's what it's going to do over time. I don't know what that length means. I really don't. And when I did a little research, what I found was, one, they're not airborne. So they don't travel far. And they're what they call single generational, so they just
Right.
have the one hatch per year. And if that hatch is treated, then it greatly knocks it down because you don't have to have it on cyclical treatments. Those are the two things I learned when I was just reading online as much as I could, but it did say they're not an airborne, and so that distance does help. Like if you've got proximity between trees, because they're not going to fly to the next one.
So, if I understand, there's maybe a willingness to look at the Court Museum trees, deal with that, not deal with the others, it's not airborne, therefore
yet,
we're
yeah.
not worried about this creating more infestation. And
Maybe no tree cutting coordinator.
maybe as we know what the development will
Yeah, November.
look like in that area of the E.J. Wood land, then we will have to make a decision, maybe later on.
Yeah, so my one last thought is, it sounds like this treatment idea, similar to like a medical treatment in a person, and those are always great, but it's also good to increase the general health and immune system of that person. And so I'm wondering if maybe we would have access to some mid-litter minerals or something, we could treat those roots, strengthen the trees in general.
I don't know, I mean, something we could look at. you know.
I'm just, like, so heal the current problem, but then strengthen the roots. So, and if we're spending, $14.67, I'd say, hey, if for $300 more, we could add some minerals down those roots.
If there's something to prevent.
Boost,
future-
yes, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, if the treatment, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
If the treatment is more efficient, if the health of the root is
Mhm.
improved,
Yeah.
then maybe we should look at
I'm
that.
saying, yeah, that's worth adding $300 to this to
There is,
sprinkle
that's an
around
interesting
the
concept.
roots.
I think it'd be something to look into, investigate if there's a way.
It's an interesting concept.
Well, I've seen Joe's garden, so I know there's some creeds that know something about this.
We're just gardening right now.
Councillor Bengry.
Councillor Peavoy's thoughts were not too far on that. When you consider it's an insect, and does it pack its bags to go from tree to tree? No, it must be a bird's carrying that insect from tree to tree. And
I have
then-
no idea, Councillor.
But the thing that I question is, how long have these trees been out here, been black like that at the top? Who knows?
We don't know.
And they could be another 50 years out there and be black on
Well,
top.
that was the question I was asking a little earlier, is that
Yeah.
what is the long-term effect? Are you always gonna have a little glass?
Exactly.
Okay, Jeff, and then Councillor Bengry. Jeff, can you, Barfuss, Jeff, can you tell
That's 3
me
times in the last
how this came to be that all of a sudden we are investigating scale on those trees? What happened?
There was an arborist in town that noticed it and notified
Oh,
Randy and asked him to come
okay.
have a
So
look
there you go.
and pointed it out to him. Like Randy took me out and we can see them all under the leaves. I never paid attention before either, right? We'd never recognized that the blackness on the trunks was a symptom of it. And so, yeah, he told Randy, because this Roscoe company's been doing a ton in Lethbridge. And so he said, you guys have got bad elm scale, and I'll show you what that looks like. And so if you go under those trees and look under the leaves, you'll see the little bugs, like little clams or kind of little guys. You'll see them down the branches. And then you see the top parts of the trees start to blacken. And again, by start, I don't know if that's 5 years or 50 years.
Okay.
I just haven't paid attention.
So I think essentially, can we possibly make a decision regarding the cold tree, the museum
So
trees?
I'm prepared to move that we allocate the funds from council-approved operating funds to deal with the museum trees.
Elm scale.
For elm scale, as per these quotes on here.
All right, okay.
And I would suggest
More
maybe a
questions?
friendly amendment if you're willing, I don't know, but maybe just to increase that amount by, say, 300, up to 300, for maybe some mineral treatment to strengthen
Well,
those roots.
the problem is
If
we
it's
have-
determined that would
That's
benefit.
The only trouble,
I think we should investigate.
Or we can have them come back and request that. Is that-
I think that's something that we would do
Separate,
afterwards. I think we need to,
Okay.
yeah.
I think so, Councillor, because we need to find out how much it would cost. We have no
Right.
idea, right?
And my thinking in that is just so we're not throwing away 1,400,
Yeah.
right?
No,
I want to try to
No, I
improve the
understand.
investment, that's
I
all.
mean, I think there is wisdom in that.
We
It's just the way we
invest-
do it.
If it's about that amount, if for $200 or $250, we'll just capture it in my parks operation. I won't need to come back for.
All right, so
I'll
there we
capture
go.
it.
Would that work, Councillor?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, Councillor Bengry, you have
I'm all well and good with this, but you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to ask Kevin Jensen from the city of Lethbridge to come down and do a little bit of a presentation on what's happening and how effective it is and so forth. I mean, this article doesn't give us the whole work.
Well, all what I have seen on TV and speaks the same language. There was a presentation on TV about the elm scale last year,
That's
this
fine, but I
year.
never saw it. Maybe you did, and I don't know how many others did.
On global,
It's on
global
YouTube.
news. Global
You can watch
news,
it.
YouTube.
Elm scale?
If you want
Yeah,
to see
elm
it.
scale.
Oh, we could watch it on
Yeah.
YouTube
I
then.
have a look at it because
Okay.
honestly, there was quite a bit of report on that.
Right, maybe one thing we could ask administration is maybe put on the calendar for a one-year report. If we get this treated and then next year we say, hey, that was completely ineffective, let's never do that
From
again.
Parks and Recs.
Or
Yeah,
that completely worked and now we have, some areas we might want to consider doing it again.
yeah.
So-
Well, that kind of makes sense.
Understanding Councilor Baker's concern, one thing, if it makes you feel any better. It is the practice that the major cities throughout the province are using. So it's consistent with, Calgary has a great website, actually. If you notice it on your trees, here's what you can do, and then if you need further help, call an arborist. We recommend an injection program. So if you just search scale, Calgary's about one of the first sites that comes up, actually. And they've got some good resources, but it seems to be consistent with what the major centers are doing.
And the treatment seems to be the one that I use in Calgary and Lethbridge. It seems to be exactly the same treatment that is recommended for us. Okay, we have motion on the floor. All in favor? Thank you. All right, now the next item is 7B, tax payment plan request for decision. It's an interesting request, except I have a little bit of a caution for us all. We had directed administration to work a plan with that property owner last year in order to deal with a payment of tax, and the deal was if the payments were made properly, we would, as council, forgive the penalties.
Mayor, before we go any farther, should this be under FOID?
No,
We're not, don't name names.
You're not talking about-
we are not naming names, and I'm not giving you the place.
Yeah.
So-
Well, the location is here.
No.
Yeah.
So essentially, what is there, in my opinion, the contract is broken. And if we have councillors want to have, make sense of the work we're doing, is to make sure that the contract that we ask administration to take is followed. And that whatever happens, except that there are mitigating circumstances, and I do understand, but we're not a bank. We're not in a business of banking. So personally, I would prefer to see last year penalty to be applied for this month, which is about the amount of $160 or so. That to help that person who is dealing with issues but willing to continue the payment, to take that $160 and divide it up by 12, it's about $15 a month, not even. Add it to the new schedule and move on with similar terms. We need to be able to show that if we put contract in place, it's because we intend to help people, we've done our part. If people cannot gather $300 from a bank, line of credit, or whatever, there's a situation there that they have to deal with. I can't be the bank, but I can have compassion yet. Except we need to apply some kind of proper penalty for the breaking of the
So just to
contract.
clarify, with the arrangements that they had made last year, they had kept all of their payment arrangements up until the very last one.
Correct.
July was
And actually,
short, $260.
if I might, Madam
Yeah,
Mayor.
go ahead.
Let me just make sure I've got both the agreements here, so let me put them this way. The final payment on the previous contract, last year's contract for the rate number, was intended to be almost $900. They made all but the $267 of it.
Which brings up kind of my question here. I vaguely recall seeing the schedule last time, and I understand this kind of idea of payments and then a kind of a big last payment, which is a little difficult. I'm seeing that we're kind of doing that again here, where, you know, the regular monthly payment that they're expecting is $150, and then we hit them hard in May next year with that $800 or whatever.
If I might though, this was created that way because that was the cycle they felt they could pay on.
Right.
So that they actually requested it to be backloaded because personal income tax was back at that point in time. That's why it's backloaded.
Okay.
It was worked out to their benefit
To their best.
and their
Yeah,
desires.
we broke it up that way for that purpose. And like I said, that everyone has personal circumstances, and I struggle with these because I don't want 30 of these. I don't want 3 of these, really. But this, you kind of have a feeling when it's legitimate and when it's not. And not that it necessarily matters for the purposes of making sure it's all handled. This is legitimate, in my opinion, but it can be abused. If we make a practice of this, it's subject to abuse.
This
And
is why
so,
we must know.
when I talked to the mayor, I said, you know, we had an agreement, and both parties agreed, and 10% of it wasn't kept. It was short by 10%. Is the justice to inflict the entire year's penalty of $167.15, or is it to do it on the portion that was remaining unpaid? I don't know. I want to help, but I don't want to help forever either.
No. I think you have wisdom in what you say.
Yeah.
We don't want to create a Pandora box.
Right. The other concern is that, you know, it's backloaded, so that there's a big payment at the end. But this is last year's taxes.
Yes.
So once they get that,
Correct.
paying that big payment, then
They're immediately levied the next year.
they're immediately owing the
This
current
year's
taxes as
These
well.
are arrears taxes we've made a plan.
So,
That's the only for.
like, that's a concern, because you said you don't want this to continue to go on, so is there a schedule that will help them to catch up, and so that they're not left in the hole again for another year?
I would suggest that there is not a schedule they would say they could afford that would double payments. That would be my,
But in here, it does mention that if they're able to adhere to this, then as of that next June 1st or whatever, they can qualify to get on TIP at that point.
That
No,
doesn't
not
take
till
care,
they pay-
that
not
doesn't
till they
take
pay.
care of this year's taxes.
yeah,
Not that it's-
they'd have to get a year ahead still, and, you know, ideally, they need to, I can't speak to their financial position at all, I don't know, but they need to get to the bank, get 1 year's worth, add to the mortgage, put on a HELOC, something, and then get on TIP. That's what needs to happen.
Personally, if you don't mind, Councillor Bond, you're so distraught.
As long as he gets in before Bengry, he's fine.
Go ahead, Councillor
Well, the
Bond.
point is, you know, I got a point to make, and then he's got a point to make, you got a point to make, and then I get my
No,
chance.
Councillor
Make your
Bond,
point.
Councillor
My
Bond,
point
by
is-
all means.
My point is, I look at, I understand justice, I understand mercy. I think these folks have done as much as they can. And if they're only behind the 10% of what we contracted, I don't think it's time to go and push them down further. They've done what they can, and that's my feeling on it.
Okay.
If you want to charge them 10% penalty, I have no problem with that, but I'm certainly not in favor of throwing out the whole year penalty because they missed 10% of what they were supposed to pay them.
Well,
Okay? That's my feeling.
Councillor Bond, can you remember that
I
there's
remember
still...
the contract, I remember the whole context of what we did, but they've done everything they can.
Do you understand that when a taxpayer doesn't pay his taxes, the rest of the taxpayers are the one who are
I understand.
subsiding them?
I understand.
And I don't really think that a citizen in this town would like to see too
You know,
many
I've lived in this
people
town,
like
I've lived in this
this.
town for 45 years. I have seen people who have sold and loaned money out to people on the premise that they don't make that one payment, they're gonna take everything. And I've seen people get wealthy on the backs of people who haven't been able to pay that one payment. I am not that kind of a person. I'm
Well-
sorry, I can't do it.
Councillor Barfuss.
My fundamental issue here is actually not about the $260, because that's a pretty small amount in the big scheme of things. My issue is, we're setting these people up to fail again.
Yeah.
The problem that they had last time is, okay, they were short a few $100s on the last payment, but they're still a whole year behind.
Exactly.
We
that's the
haven't
point.
fixed the problem,
Yeah.
all we've done is kick the can down the road. And that's all we're gonna do here again, is
I
kick the
agree.
can down the road.
I
So,
disagree.
what are they gonna do
Do you
next
know
year?
the
Counselor?
circumstances of this people?
I don't know who these people are, so
I
I
do.
obviously cannot know the circumstances.
And we must
That's not the issue. The
we must
issue
not
is,
deal with that.
unless there is a plan in place for them to be caught up at the end of this, we're right back here again next year. And that's what I said last time when
I
we
think
did
that's
this.
what they're trying to do.
Okay. Councillor Bengry.
Jeff, is there any way that you could sit down with these people and set out a payment schedule that we move them forward?
No, this only deals with the 1 year, this
That's
doesn't even get
arrears,
caught
yeah.
up, that's the problem.
So, can I propose it? Absolutely. Can they stand it? I'm not convinced.
So,
But, if I may, oh, sorry, you were jumping in.
Councillor Creed, you wanted to say something?
Well, no, I was wondering, somebody said something about setting it up with a mortgage.
Yeah, that's exactly what.
That's the only way they're gonna
That's
do
the way
it.
that-
It's
way to do it.
it's the only
Put
way
it
to
up on
do
That's
it.
what I would, I think if there's a definitive end to this, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's no choice but to find the bank, the HELOC, mortgage arrangements. That's going to force the issue.
And that's where I'm going with this, is
Yeah.
I would have no problems waiving the entire penalty, is if part of that plan is that they have in place, they've gone to their bank and they've made arrangements to be able to be caught up on that next year. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
literally, they're a year behind again next year. If they're barely able to make these payments as it stands now, then they're not getting caught up, and next year, they're the exact same
How long
way
has this
again.
been ongoing?
I think this is our,
This is the third time, right?
Well, it's the third cycle of taxes.
year behind.
Yeah, so,
now, one thing just to be, and why I always give, I appreciate, everyone's got different financial issues and struggles, and we have a lot of accounts in the year arrears right now, no question. This is not our only arrears account. You saw in the financial statement last month, we had $75,000 sitting in arrears. But I always appreciate when someone, long before the first payment isn't made, they're in your office saying, hey, what can I do? What can we work out? These penalties put me that much further behind. If there is a proactivity here, which I respect and I appreciate. But I also do not recommend that it goes on forever. It doesn't do anyone the service. And what you've done effectively is spared them what would be essentially about $400 in penalties by saving that all year.
we already.
And then paying it at the end.
Yeah.
You spared them a tremendous amount of penalty. But I always give credit when there's a proactive approach to it. It goes over a lot better.
Here is my concern. My concern for those individuals is that for the amount of $260, which is rather low, they're having $160 in penalty. In other words, they start to remedy their financial situation through a line of credit or something like that. They wouldn't have that $160 penalty, which is such a large amount in comparison to what was missing. But the whole issue is that need to address the financial challenges I have in a way that's sustainable. What we are doing for them right now is hardly sustainable.
The fundamental problem, and in my work, I work with some families that are right on that edge financially, where they just don't have that $160. It just doesn't exist, they don't have a lot of credit they can dip into for it, they just don't have that ability. The problem is if it continues to be kicked down the road, it will never be corrected. So I would be in favor of us forgiving and setting up this plan exactly as it is, and forgiving the penalty, is if with part of it, they have to come with a plan on, my bank is gonna be able to give us a HELOC on our house for this amount to be able to pay off this other year's balance. Because otherwise, and I said these exact words last year, next year, we're gonna be having this exact same conversation again. Because
I
they won't
agree.
have the ability to pay off the last year's arrears.
No, I totally agree, but then that brings us back to a far more complex conversation is, should council even entertain any tax in arrears? Personally, I think there is a place for us to help, but there is also wisdom in what you're saying. Are we only creating more of a burden on the long run if they don't want to address the true issue first? You're right. This is why I say we're not a bank. Yes, that's a bank.
My concern in areas, we're doing them an injustice if we continue on like this. But also, when people get themselves into trouble for $160 or $250 or whatever, then they don't think financially. They don't have a plan to back them up. My concern is, do we as a town need to have a policy developed? Because it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse as the financial times go on. Do we need to develop a policy which says, right, straightforward, this is the way it's going to be, and if there's default or anything like that, I'm sorry, but
Well, I think
But we
that is in
we
place
have
now,
that.
that's what the tax
We have
rules are
that.
now.
Yeah.
What this is this is somebody that's come to council asking for an exception to the policy, which every taxpayer has the right to come to us and appeal to our sense of mercy. And, you know, looking at what we're talking about here, this is a case where I've seen people in similar situations that have literally had to completely redo all of their finances,
Exactly.
including selling their house and going into a smaller place that's not as comfortable for them, and they're in really uncomfortable places, but that's where they are at that point. And if that's a hard decision to make, and I'm not trying to make that light or anything, but unless they are able to put themselves in a position to be able to get ahead of the game, we're gonna be here dealing with this exact same thing again next year.
Okay. So, I hear many things. The thing I hear is that we want them to be financially sustainable and be able to deal with their tax. I heard we need to have total mercy. I heard we need to help them with a plan. My point of view, there's a little bit of all of that should be given. So, Councillor Barfuss, the way you were kind of framing it, you were saying, we as council would be willing to forgive the penalty only if there is a bank or financial plan in place with documentation given to the town.
Yeah, I want to see something where they've done the work to be able to get to the point of being able to pay it off.
All right, so,
By next year.
no, by this year.
Well, they need to have that
It needs to
plan in
be
place
done.
so that when this payment is done, because they'll have this year's taxes will be due when this payment is done.
Yeah.
They need
So-
to be able to pay this year's taxes.
In other words, would you give them 1 month to be able to get
That would be-
themselves a financial plan that would remedy the situation
I would
altogether?
absolutely be prepared.
And
It might be
allow
a little-
them to
It might
be,
be a little more time, they have a death in the family to deal with right now.
yeah, but, you know, we can't, I hear you, Councillor, but this is why you have banks.
I think a month is time to be able to make an appointment to sit down with a bank manager and work through the issues. I think that's a reasonable time frame.
You know, it's always difficult to go to the bank and say, I need a plan. But this is why you have financial institution, is to help people. And the time is right, the interests are low. And will be way lower than all the penalties that would accumulate. The amount of penalties accumulating is at a rate of interest that is crazy. Anyone with logic would say that go with the lowest interest rate you can find on the market.
that's why I say we're doing them, but justice is what we do. You say
All right,
they
so
need to sit down.
I need a motion. Councillor Barfuss, do you want to do
Sure,
that?
I'll move that,
Hold on.
Real quick, Councillor, I just want, while you're making your motion, just for the ease of managing this, do you want that plan just to be to my satisfaction, or do you want it back to the council table? So is it direction that this payment plan's okay if there's a plan presented that this is the last year and we move on? Or do you want to see this again at the table? I just want that to be clear. I'm good either way, but I just want that to be clear.
Councillor Barfuss.
so there's a part of me that says I'm comfortable with it just going to Jeff's satisfaction. I don't think everything needs to come to the council table all the time. But there's another part of me that wants to to see that they put a plan in place.
Okay, could that be a report? Could that be a report from the CAO?
That I can report back.
Okay,
What
all
the
right, so
determined,
that
yeah.
could be a report.
That would be nice.
Councillor Bengry?
Being formerly in a real estate situation, and because of confidentiality, when you are asking to open up your financial records, I would suggest that that report goes right to our CAO, and then he makes a report back to us.
Yeah.
To what he's finding with no figures involved.
Well, we
So
had-
all the figures involved, not the name involved.
Right,
No,
makes sense.
not even the figures involved,
Well,
because
The figures involved, Councillor, are the figures that on, the plan on how they're going to have the taxes that are owed to our community paid. Those figures have to be there.
yes, because they are public records, Councillor.
I don't need to know what their income is, I don't care.
Taxes is public record.
Taxes is public record, that needs to come, absolutely.
Okay,
So I'm prepared to move that we give direction to, one, to our administration, that the penalties be waived and that this plan be put into place, assuming that there is a plan put into place to be able to pay off the current tax bill that is being, that will be due after this plan is paid for,
To the satisfaction of our CAO.
to the satisfaction of our CAO with a report coming back to council.
So the only clarification I need on that motion then is what happens if they fail to do that?
Yeah,
Do all of the fees then apply?
no, well,
And does the contract then fall apart?
no, I
My opinion is if that fails, we treat it just like every other arrears. It goes into the arrears, it's subject to penalties, 2 years it's on caveat, 3 years it's taxed in. And I know that sounds really harsh. Thankfully, we rarely get to tax it, but I'm just saying we would deal with it in the exact same way we deal with all the other arrears taxes. There just wouldn't be any special consideration.
you know what is interesting? Is every time we have had a tax sale, the people went to the bank, and the bank helped them.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the bank doesn't want to own the property.
Of course not.
They would rather lower an extra $1,000 and get the tax bill paid up than to take over proper ownership of the property.
Yeah.
Is that, that's how I would deal with it, just all concessions come off and it's dealt with as per our policy for dealing with arrears.
Okay? All in favor? Thank you. Those are difficult things, you know, they're difficult, but on the other hand, we have to remember that people cannot bill.
There's no question that
Everybody
people
who
run
has
into
difficulty in
difficult
town.
financial time periods. And I am not opposed to us being able to extend a hand to help out, but that has to come with a plan to be able to
Right.
be out of it.
A
Not just think-
sustainable plan.
Yeah.
It has to be viable, yeah. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your compassion, I appreciate your sense of justice. It's a tough balance. All right, so let's move on. 8, financial report.
You got 2 C and D.
Anything else regarding the May 30th, 2017 financial reports? So, any question
We need
regarding
a
that?
motion to,
Jeff, we need motion to
To
approve
approve
them.
the May
Yeah.
31st.
I just had a question on it first.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just curious, with construction and other issues happening, I was just curious, I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but is our pool meeting revenue expectations at this point? Like at this point, I know it's early in the season, but
Pool ever be the
You know something,
I
because
have no
this,
expectation, I really.
because this is a May 31st, 2017 report, it would not even
It
show
reflect,
the revenues that
sure.
were given in June.
Yeah, it's not captured.
Corrected in
I have no concerns, I'm
You have no
anticipating
concerns,
something
no red
very
flags
similar.
coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
According to the operator, Doug Sanders, he feels that the season is moving very well.
We've sold the seasonal passes.
Yeah,
that we
those have
looked
been
to.
going well, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it
So-
seems to be busy.
Okay,
question.
Councillor Bengry, Councillor Hans, sorry.
If it's a big, we're in trouble.
Bengry's on board today.
I tell you.
Just by good luck, isn't it, Mayor?
Yeah, you're really causing me
So-
confusion.
Parks and Recreation, I've had 2 conflicting meetings in a row, maybe 3, I'm not sure. Councillor Bengry's gone to Parks and Rec for me, because I've had a horse meeting the same night. And we've been talking about bocce ball courts for seniors.
Oh,
Right.
Where is that coming into play here at this point in time under capital projects? I'd like to know. So I'm getting asked by the seniors group.
go
Have
ahead.
a deal with it in this?
Can we maybe take care of it under Parks and Recs
Sure.
and really approve the budget, the financial, sorry?
So I'll move to approve the financial report, May 31st, 2017.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So, Councillor, remind me when we go into committees
Okay.
that we'll deal with that,
Thank you.
okay? All right, so committee and other reports, there were very few reports, but it's holidays, so unless you have a burning issue to report, we didn't have any mayor and Reeves, we didn't have any four mayors.
Just the
We
stand
didn't
tech
have
engineering.
Southborough,
That's all.
Say that again?
the
I just want to know
CEO,
about the outfall, what's going on
did you
in
talk?
your report here.
Yeah, maybe.
It's on,
It's on the report.
it's in the report.
All we know is that right now they've reprogrammed the pumps on the shutdown and they'll monitor the pressures. They just did that in the last couple of
Are they
days.
still leaking?
We haven't had any since we fixed the last one,
Okay.
knock on wood. So, I mean, we would go some time between anyway, so that's not
Yeah.
completely telling.
Doesn't really mean anything yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, we haven't fixed anything since, it's been a while, a few weeks anyway.
All right, Councillor Creed?
Right, the Communities in Bloom are still active throughout the summer, doing the
Yeah.
Yard of the Week program, and this next Tuesday, we will have the Communities in Bloom judges coming to our community. They'll actually come Monday, stay overnight, and do a tour of the community on Tuesday. I think the council is basically invited to the luncheon if they would like to let us know if they would like to come to the luncheon. I think they'll,
They want to know the numbers, but I like
They
the
want to know.
pressure on me today, so.
Okay, so would you please let administration know, or whoever, who should they report to?
who would, should they just let Angel know, or?
For sure.
Okay, so
Yeah, contact
please
Angel.
make sure that you let Angel know. Councillor Bengry?
Jeff, in your report, you talked about our electrical and meeting with Kevin Phillips, and
Yeah.
also Albert Footman, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Can you give us a little bit of a more on that situation? Does it look like AUMA or whoever is going to entertain us, AUC?
Actually, interestingly enough, at 4:35, Kevin sent me the synopsis draft to send on this, so I'm ready, because I was here.
Okay.
So we're working through the bureaucrats first, through their administration. We had a phone call, and now we're gonna submit a formal, here's what we'd like to see ideally. Kevin was very encouraged after the phone calls that it looks like we may have some traction and move this forward. So once we send the written document, they'll scrutinize it, and then we'll see what the political play is. There obviously to be some, there's gonna be great pushback by unnamed other distributors in this whole thing, but we anticipate a lot of pushback. However, that's why we'll need the politicians at that point.
So we still have their foot in the door.
Oh, yeah, it's looking actually not too bad after the last conversation.
Good.
So right now we have a position that is a common position between Pinocchio and the town of
Yeah.
Cardston regarding the
So-
distribution tariffs.
So is that to assume then that this is our thoughts on what we would like to do down the road, or something that Pinocchio is
Yes,
is
Pinocchio is
interested in
very
as well?
much keen to do the same thing. yeah.
Okay.
Basically, so in a nutshell, that position is to be exempt from the AUC rules on distribution, not all AUC rules, but under the ones that would prohibit us from doing and using generation within our system. So the town of Cardston system, from the AUC point of view, is looked at as simply an extension of the overall provincial system. And what we're saying is Medicine Hat is viewed as an island in that system. So whatever they generate, they can burn up within their system. If they need excess, they can pull it off the grid. They can be the retailer, so they don't have to allow competition for that service. And so they have those 3 pillars of revenue. And so that's the gist of what we're going here, is can we be considered an independent system, still be connected and pay for that when we need it? We're not going to be in a position year 1 to have all of our power within the system, if ever.
Right.
We may never be. And you always need that backbone, and you need to pay for that. Nobody's arguing that. We pay a considerable amount now to be hooked to the main distribution. It's around $800,000 a year. So, but if we could reduce that alone by half, you just think about if we could have enough generation to reduce by half our distribution charges to the main system, well, that's all of a sudden a major boon for us.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of the proposal right now.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor
Oh,
Kronen.
yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to follow up, I still, on my previous comments on the communities of Bloom judges, because I want to request if administration could alert Public Works and Parks and Rec to be particularly attuned to making sure the streets are swept, at least the main street. And
This is the week that matters.
yeah, this is for this coming, I think,
More.
whatever we do, that, we give a little particular attention to that time, that things are, as far as town properties are concerned.
Can we
Angel has the tour route. The judges tend to do a little of their own touring as well, so, just if we can be attuned to
Cut your lawns.
keeping things.
So, yeah, I'm thinking like a notification to the public.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
We did one last week. We sent
Yeah,
out.
I think it should be on the town Facebook. I think it is on the town Facebook that the judges are coming.
Maybe hit it.
We can ask the citizens of the community
This is
to,
the week.
Yeah.
keep.
What day do you get judged?
Tuesday, next
Next
Tuesday.
Tuesday is the day they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's when you take all your house potted plants, take them outside and put them
The green spray paint.
Just a couple of things, just a question, I don't know whether Jeff, somebody has ever talked to you about this, but I was talking with somebody on Saturday. I was over to the trade in Coaldale, talking with Jason Avery's councillor with the town of Coaldale. He was asking how things generally are going here in town, talking about the electrical system situation. He said, did you know Fort McLeod are making a plebiscite vote that that's not a slam dunk issue, selling their thing? People in Fort McLeod are pretty upset about it, and they've asked to put it on the ballot, whether or not they could.
Well, good for them.
Yeah.
I just wondered if
Just
you
a
heard
bit of
more.
clarity there. The town proposed it was on the ballot from the start.
Okay,
Their accepting the offer from Fortis was contingent on a non-binding vote at the election.
okay,
Yeah, that's been the intent,
okay.
And
so.
for any large project that way, you really should have a sense of what your community.
With that, I think it's also
You know.
important to note that Fort McLeod's position is in the position where they really don't have a choice,
Yeah.
whether people are upset or not.
Well, that's a whole thing, You got to always look at the financial benefit, the pros and cons of the whole idea. Okay.
And the other question on electrical is, how soon do we anticipate that the solar panels will be online, or are they already?
They are doing the inverters, and the bidirectional meters are here. So those are here, and they were working on the inverters downstairs today, so.
They were doing,
Yeah, they're just working on that interior stuff, all that infrastructure.
We could have saved thousands of dollars in the last week just with that.
okay.
I'm wondering if
Councillor?
this is an appropriate place to talk about, or mention about the tourism initiative with the tours that are going on now in town. Are you aware of all these tours that are happening now?
Okay, it's done by Jeremy Scott, like the
Yeah,
ambassadors, the ambassador program. right?
Yeah.
And, Jeremy presented that in one of the documents a while back, probably a good 6 months ago. So is that something that is on a website? I do not know.
Yeah, it'd be nice if more people knew about it. I know my wife's one of the tour hosts, my son is too. But I noticed also they're doing, the Remingtons have free tours, free horse and buggy rides on Mondays now for anybody who's interested in those things. I think it's wonderful that for our tourism, if it's gonna work,
All right.
take advantage of them.
Yeah, so is it on our website? I do not know.
It's not our program.
Because it's
so I haven't
Jam
seen it,
that should be the one
but Cardston Tourism has a
advertised.
website up and it's been
Yeah,
heavily
and
advertised
at the
online
farmer's
on Facebook.
market,
Yeah.
at the farmer's market, Jam was there.
Okay. Yeah.
Pushing that forward. So that should help. Now, regarding the parks and recs, yes, we had a wonderful July 1st party in the park, and Councillor Bengry, you're absolutely correct. We owe a big thank you to the Canada 150 ad hoc committee that put it all forward.
They did a lot
So
of
thank
work.
you so much. I do not know who your people were that were on your committee, but I will be glad to send them a thank you card if you give me the name of each of those people. Would be glad to be doing that. It was a well-attended event. They expected 350 to come for breakfast. I was there serving breakfast, so there were over 600 plates that were served, 620. So it was rather amazing. So it was a very well-attended event, and the activities were fun for the kids, really fun.
Let's go back to the tourism permits. I know we do address tourism a certain amount on the town website. Do we have a link to the tourism website from the town?
To Jerem's site?
Yeah.
To those activities that are planned this
I
summer.
don't know.
I think
I
there
wonder if
is.
that would be a good idea, just to have at least have a link to that.
On the things to
on
do
our-
page.
On our site, so that, because certainly we address tourism on our, as part of the community.
To do it.
And I think it would be, well, at least to have a link to that site for people to go to.
All right. Anything else that you want to comment on regarding committees? You had a question, Councillor, regarding 7th Avenue West.
Yes, I just,
Bengry.
I traveled down 7th Avenue West from 12th Street, coming off 12th Street, and the summer activities out there at the Dome there are very active, and they're going to be more active. And that's 7th Avenue West from the booster station to the 12th Street. You could have kidney problems by the time you got finished. So it
You
needs,
might have some fixes too.
we should have, maybe have a look at that being graded down and settled down.
Is that the road that had been,
Yes, we put a
Kinda
surface on
asphalted?
it, up to the booster station.
oh, I see.
Well, you need
Just
a
went up
bunch
to the
of
booster
speed
station.
jumps to slow people down, because that's what makes it like that.
Well, these aren't speed jumps, these are,
Potholes.
Okay.
well, no,
All
they're
right.
Let's just-
not.
Well, thank you for reporting that. Administration can look into it.
Just before we move on in that regard, I watched a kid on a moped the other day hit a pothole. I think it was 2nd or 3rd Avenue, I can't remember which one, 3rd I think it is,
Yeah.
and boy, he just about went. And the pothole was that long, it was that big, and that deep.
Okay. Did you report it?
No, I didn't. I was asking, do we have a pothole program for the summertime other than just the spring?
If
To
you
check
re-
them out once in a while?
If you report
I'm
the
not gonna
issue,
suggest they get on top of every one of them all the
No.
time,
No.
no. But we need
That's
to
a
do a
kind of a
little
major one.
Matt goes around it.
Just report
if you
them.
report it, when I see one that is really in need of repair, I report it. We can't have public works do all around. We need to be also a little bit of the eyes for the community.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you. Courthouse.
Yes, being on that committee and looking at the solar panels on the roof of this building, the courthouse museum spends a lot of money on utilities through the winter. And most of it is heat built, but is there any way that we can access power from these solar panels to the courthouse museum?
There are these?
Yes.
They're set up. No.
Or they're not set up to go anywhere else?
No.
It's too bad.
Not an option.
It's a good try, but honestly.
Well,
the way it's
I'm just,
designed.
I'm looking at the different things that, that cost the courthouse museum to operate. And I'm just wondering if we can cut costs there.
I have a question about the courthouse too, maybe I should.
Just real quick on that, and I made a note, I asked Alex a while ago to mock up what the sizing would need to be to net bill that facility as well. I still haven't followed up on it because it hasn't come up, but I bet you he has a mock-up of what the capital requirement would be for that.
I'm just wondering if we could do it because it's been classed as a historical society.
Well, you may have problems putting solar panels on
Yeah.
a 100-year-old courthouse, for sure. I don't know. But I'll ask. I think Alex mocked up with the sizing and the capital requirement.
Thanks, Jeff.
So they're not
Okay.
going to be visible.
Councillor
I was going to ask
Lawrence.
Councillor Bengry, back a year or so ago, if I recall, the courthouse museum asked about hooking up to our Wi-Fi system. From what I understand, they've shut down their system because they couldn't afford to pay their internet service. They don't have an active internet service at the museum anymore.
It's not a matter of not affording it.
Uh-huh.
It's a matter of how much use it would be getting for that monthly charge. So they are looking at, and I know,
I believe it's already set up.
I know Jeff has been approached about it, putting a
Booster?
booster.
I believe it's set up right now where it's here and you can access it from over there. There's a-
Pardon me?
Yeah.
It's already
I'll give you
accessible.
it's already accessible.
Is it?
It's done.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Councillor? Thank you. Is there any more question regarding reports? No? Okay, let's go to correspondence.
Did we do the peace officer report already, or?
Well, if you want to talk about it, we can
No,
talk about
I
it.
just didn't know whether we were discussing it or.
I'm just asking if you have any more questions regarding reports. Do you have questions?
Has our peace officer got his new truck yet?
It's
According to what is
truck is here now.
reported,
It's being
in
striped and
town.
everything.
Yes.
Good.
Anything else, councillors?
No.
All right. Let's go to correspondence. Alberta Culture and Tourism solicitation for nominations. If you know any names that you want to do something about, please go ahead. The next letter is actually an interesting letter. The letter from Tonya Watson. She's concerned with the fact that we might not have
Sideways a little.
we might
You can
not
turn that
have
around.
bylaws in place regarding vagrancy. So, I believe we do have somewhat a policy, but the problem with the policy is that the enforcement of it is almost impossible, which takes away the teeth that the policy has. We tried to see how that policy would work at court, and we really realized unless the amount of fines are extremely high, but not reasonably high, you will not get any result from a court. So, in our case, the case was rejected,
That was for a $50 fine, right?
and
Well, that one, they got guilty.
It was guilty. It was guilty plea.
Pardon me?
so
pay the fine.
the person
That
can
was a
be
guilty
found
plea.
guilty, but if the person has no money, they're sent back home with a lunch bag. So that is not helping us a lot. If it's too high, it's thrown out of court.
What is too high?
I think
Never
it's
discussed this,
important that maybe, and I don't know whether Jeff's already addressed this or not, but, or whether you have, but
if there's a misunderstanding that there's no legislation in place, that's not the case.
Yeah, so that is what I believe needs to be done. I believe, first of all, we need to reply officially to this letter and kind of state what legislation we have and possibly the difficulty we have to have it legally enforced.
Which business is she with?
I mean, I totally understand the plea of the merchant, I really do. If I had a quick fix, it would be a wonderful thing. But that is something that this council and past council have struggled with because the courts have new direction that small issues do not clog the courts. And so if that's going to be the case, petty theft, pettiness, what I call pettiness, will not be addressed properly.
I probably will continue.
It will never be, in fact, it will increase because there is no justice done. So I do not know how we deal with that. Do we write to the Solicitor General and express our concern? That is one position. But with the state of affairs and the lack of judges in this province, I do not know that the remedy is quick to come.
And we have another issue that goes with that, in that we have members of our community who are very kind-hearted and don't like to see people hungry and in trouble. And so they reach out and try to help, not understanding that that's actually making the problem worse.
Yes.
And that's a tough one to convince somebody of.
The problem is it makes our law look ineffective.
I was just saying, do we as a council have that opportunity to set the fine a little higher, that maybe there'll be a little teeth, or does that come through the courts, or what?
We can set those in the bylaw.
And then it becomes a little more serious if that, in case the guy pleads guilty and they can't pay it, then there might be some jail time involved.
Right, that's what.
You know, and maybe we need to look at that. But, you know, I go to the Dairy Queen with my family, and vagrants are coming in there and grabbing empty cups of the garbage, going and getting free pop, coming over to the people, asking them to, you know, to give them food. They've got a free pop. And then everybody's saying, no, and then all of a sudden the lady gets up, runs out the door, I'll buy you a burger. And they bring it back in. Well, and it's really hard because it goes totally against what we're trying to accomplish here. And
But our motivations are pure and.
oh, absolutely. I mean, how do you fault the person that says, come on,
Okay, what we need to really,
I'll get something to eat.
what we really need to help educate the people is with the initiatives that our peace officer is trying to put together, which is for people to contribute to the fund to supply the shelter with
They shut the shelter down.
with money. The shelter at this point is reopened 3 times a week. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and allowing those patrons to come, grab a shower, grab a lunch,
And some clothing.
and
blankets.
and have blankets and clothing.
I wonder if there might be some value in doing a more public advertisement for that in some of our stores, poster.
I thought that's what was going to happen.
Is that the plan?
There's some
Around,
posted
yeah.
down there, I've seen,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I don't know if it's like clear. I'm also wondering if maybe it's time for maybe another mayor YouTube video.
Yes, yeah, well, you
Well,
never know. Sure, why not?
You can call it, you know, the town's panhandling policy, and that'll get some views. Views.
Views.
Yeah.
And
I suspect-
what we really need to educate our people is to maybe how to speak to vagrant when they are approached. Because some people have total fear.
They
And
don't.
I understand that. You know, I was approached at a bank by a fellow that, listening to his story, it's really mind-boggling. But they also need to know that if we are doing our part through a system, they need to turn to their band and council in order to get support. This particular fellow has been raised on this reserve, but is not from this reserve. So he has no ideas whatsoever. So, and I asked, why don't you go to your reserve and get ideas? And his was a rather mind-boggling answer. I have too many enemies over there. And I'm thinking, okay, well, then how do we see those people receive help? I can't help them. They're under federal status. It becomes very complicated.
I know that it's more than just on how to communicate with them, though. I know I have a young son, he's 23, pretty strapping fellow, I mean, and he felt coerced to go in and buy a pizza for some guys, and he came home in tears because he felt literally like he'd been held up. There is that level of aggressiveness that is
Yeah,
out there right now.
it's aggressive.
It's,
Think of right in the restaurants now.
Yes, I do. But it's up to the owners also to see to it that they look after their
And they're not.
premises. You see, we as council cannot fix all the problem. We need help from others. This is a difficult issue. It's a human issue, it's a social issue, it's a justice issue, and it's very difficult. I wish it was easier, but it's not. All I know that chief and council are kind of aware of the situation, and they want to deal with having a proper understanding of this population. How they're going to do it, I do not know, but they're going to
do we need a
their
motion
CSS.
for a response to
Yes,
this
please.
particular? So, do we want to have administration write that, or given that this is addressed to you, do you want to?
We always write it for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll move that we direct administration and the mayor, however they decide to collaborate on it, to reply to Tanya Watson, just giving her some updated information on the legislation that we do have in place and the issues surrounding vacancy and how we're trying to address it.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. And that letter is a public letter, so I'm wondering if we shouldn't put a CC to
All members of the town?
to the Chamber of Commerce at least. And maybe to our MLA and our MP wouldn't be a bad thing. Okay. Aging demographic survey. Yes, yes.
You had a subheading on Tanya Watson.
B1?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You want to speak to it
Yeah.
now? Go ahead.
I'm on Main Street along with Councillor Barnes quite often, in more than I am. I have in the past month witnessed more garbage going on Main Street than I'd like to recognize.
You talking behavior, not literal garbage?
Well, behavior and
Okay.
literal garbage.
Oh, hell.
Number one, we had a store, a merchant, that put up gates across her store that she can close, and it closes off the alcove. 2 stores up from her, we have an outdoor toilet. in that alcove. And I know Councillor Barnes has probably witnessed it. A lot of other people have witnessed it. And I'm wondering if we can't get a hold of the store owner of that particular property and somehow ask them if they can build some steel gates across there that can be open and closed if the store ever opens back up, to prohibit them from going in there and collecting in there and doing whatever they want. I mean, it's not only a public outhouse, but it's entertains a whole lot of other things going on in there. And I think it needs to be closed off. And it's a vacant property.
Are we talking about the east side of the street?
No, we're talking
On the
about the
west
west
side.
side.
Across from me.
And it's right across. It's an old model millinery store.
Yeah.
The difficulty
Yeah.
is exactly what you said, it's a privately owned business.
Well, then,
We can ask them to do that.
but I'm not wondering, Councillor, I know where you're coming from, but I'm not wondering if this council can't look at a situation where we could entice some of these store owners to do some more things. I don't know if we could give them $20 or something like that to help them build this or whatever, and if the other store owner that's already done that.
Well, I know what she spent in doing that, and $20 isn't gonna entice anybody.
But I'll tell you, it has deterred a problem.
Yeah.
Sure, it absolutely.
And we need to look at our business people down there. Now, I had a business person talk to me the night of the fireworks, and she was very, very pleased with the signs on Main Street. She says they need to be a little bit bigger, but she says, hey, they tell us, no vagrancy, and it's against the law, and no panhandling. And so that is a good move and a good step. Now, is there something that we can entice and help our business community
Okay.
do programs like that?
Okay.
The library had to do it.
Exactly.
They did, they closed off that.
Councillor, I addressed that very issue at different time. And if you remember, Cardston Pizza used to have, when it was 9 Live, 9 had a little bit of an alcove also.
Yeah, and they build out.
And because of exactly what you're talking about, they built it out and made it flush, and that stopped the issue. And I personally feel that if every building was flush with the sidewalk, that much of the issue would go away.
Well,
Well, you can deal with the area.
It's happening in the middle of the sidewalk too, so let's not.
So the gathering in those alcoves makes sense when there's hot sun, when there is rain, when there's wind. Of course they're going to attract people.
but what I can't understand is the Toronto Dominion has that individual down there, and yet the Royal Bank has that wall up there, people just love to sit on it. What's the matter with the Royal Bank? They can't look down the street and say, hey.
But you're not gonna legislate somebody that they have to put a.
Oh, no,
There, no, whatever.
no, but if we as a
You know
council
something?
did some kind of a,
I mean, we have to
incentive.
also realize there are a lot of people who like to gather. We gather differently. But you can't stop social activity. What you need to prohibit is the activities that is illicit. That's a problem.
Well, this council has talked about some kind of a portable traveling even shower or bathroom facility.
Doesn't work in Lethbridge, ask Lethbridge, they've spent thousands of dollars on maintenance.
We looked at it, that was a $200,000 proposition
That was the low end one.
without the maintenance. And,
And it
yeah,
doesn't
It's
work.
not working.
And it doesn't work.
it doesn't
They
work
spent
because of
thousands.
the level of maintenance it requires.
Yeah.
If it's used properly, it works like a charm. In Europe, you have them everywhere. But when they're not used according to proper use, it becomes a maintenance nightmare. And it is costing the town of Lethbridge huge amount of money, to the point where they now need to have those monitored. So honestly, we couldn't afford that either. I mean, should we have a place for those people to have a gathering place, a social? Yes, it should be wherever it might be, probably Moccasin Flat or something like that. There are towns who have, Jeff, didn't you tell me Pincher Creek is something like that? Or is that for McLeod? A room where people can gather for those who are,
Like the Friendship Center?
yeah,
Oh, yeah, Pincher Creek has it.
yeah, for people who are transient, a place where they can have a cup of coffee, wash themselves, a proper bathroom, it's attended, apparently it's paid by federal money. I would like administration to look into that. And try to see if there's something, some funding, how do we access funding? Who could get that funding? Would that be the reserve? Put something Moccasins Flat? Possibly, do not know. Anyway, those are ideas, but maybe administration can look into it for us. All right, let's go to the aging demographic survey.
Just
For your information, you can see we're not now the town with the oldest population. There are some other towns that are older than us, like Fort McLeod, which surprised me. Nanton.
Way to go, Barnes.
Milk River.
Okay,
Our baby ratio helps save our average.
Yes.
Thanks, Bill.
and yet we are a town with a fairly high young population. So, interesting. All right, I think we're done.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor? Enjoy your month's holiday. Remember, we have a meeting in August. Jeff, give us exactly the date.
8th? Does that sound
Don't
right?
we don't
Second
have
Tuesday.
any confidential stuff here?
No.
No.
I just wonder what that FOIP is.
That just means that if we have confidential item, the FOID
Well, do I still
reference
have a
will be
reference on
there.
Yeah, same with question.
Hey, Mayor, this year, we're celebrating 150. We have one class reunion that's having their 50-year reunion. Next
Is that
year,
yours?
Next year, it's Councillor Creed and myself's 50th year. I think that's a mile mark that I would like to see something that we did as a town. Like this year is the year ahead of us, Bill, you know that. Have something, because after 50 years,